I'm Sharon Betters, and you are listening to the Daily Treasure podcast produced by Mark Inc. Ministries, and I'm so glad that you are joining us for our new series called The Valley of Tears. Today, we're going to introduce to you the sons of Korah, and if you've never heard of them, you're going to be actually encouraged by their journey, even though their forefathers made some very serious mistakes, very serious bad decisions. And so today's devotional is called The Sons of Korah, and today's treasure is from Philippians 4, verses 11 through 13. Not that I am speaking of being in need, for I have learned in whatever situation I am to be content. I know how to be brought low, and I know how to abound. In any and every circumstance, I have learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger, abundance and need. I can do all things through him who strengthens me. There are varying opinions on the author of Psalm 84. Some think David wrote it in the context of his son Absalom's attempt on his life, as we read in the Matthew Henry commentary. But there is another possibility that requires our consideration. When I was younger, I paid little attention to notes similar to the one accompanying Psalm 84. To the choir master, according to the Gittith, a psalm of the sons of Korah. Ignoring this brief statement robs us of a picture of God's amazing grace. Because it is addressed to the choir master, we know it is meant to be sung as part of corporate worship. Additionally, one meaning of the Gittith is a stringed instrument, perhaps a precursor to the guitar. We can conclude that as official worship leaders, the sons of Korah led the congregation in singing this psalm and many others with the accompaniment of stringed instruments. While some think David wrote it for the sons of Korah to sing and worship, others believe the sons of Korah not only led worship, but wrote this psalm as they did at least 10 others. Either way, who are the sons of Korah? We find their story in Numbers 16, where we learn their history starts thousands of years earlier in the time of Moses, as the Israelites left Egypt and began their trek through the wilderness. Imagine how difficult it would be to lead 1 million men and their families on such a journey. Clearly, a well-oiled machine required explicit organization, especially when it came to moving the tabernacle and all its parts. Though God chose the Levites out of the tribes of Israel to care for the tabernacle, including the Ark of the Covenant, he instructs Moses that only the sons of Aaron could serve as priests, as we read in Numbers 3:10. And you shall appoint Aaron and his sons, and they shall guard their priesthood. But if any outsider comes near, he shall be put to death. Now the priesthood was a high calling with enormous responsibilities. The care of the tabernacle and all its accoutrements carried great honor. Each of Levi's 3 sons, Gershon, Merari, and Kohath, had specific tasks. The Gershonites took care of the tabernacle and tent, including all the coverings, curtains, ropes, and so on, as we read in Numbers 3, verses 21 through 26. God assigned the Merarites responsibility for the structural parts of the tabernacle, including the framework, posts, and pegs, as we read in Numbers 3, verses 33 through 37. Lastly, God gave the Kohathites the responsibility of caring for the interior of the tabernacle, the sanctuary, as we read in Numbers 3, 27 through 32. They protected and transported the ark, lampstand, altars, the curtain, and much more. Eleazar, son of Aaron, supervised the Kohathites. The Gershonites and the Merarites carried the items under their care on carts, but per God's instructions, the Kohathites transported the sanctuary items by carrying them on their shoulders. Additionally, they were not allowed to touch these items. Numbers 4:15 tells us they wrapped the objects in special coverings in order to carry them from place to place. Imagine how difficult it would be for the Kohathites to move from place to place with items like the ark, lampstand, and so on their shoulders each time. And imagine the stress of making sure no one touched these items. Some of the Kohathites began to despise their assignment and fix their eyes on the priesthood. As so often happens in life, discontent found discontent. Korah, the grandson of Kohath, started hanging out with Dathan and Abiram, who were Reubenite malcontents. Their dissatisfaction led to sinful pride and to anger toward God's laws. In time, they gathered a mob of about 250 well-known men, chiefs of the congregation. Now catch that. The well-known, respected leaders of the congregation joined Korah and his cohorts, and they challenged Moses' leadership and Aaron's right to the priesthood. How many times have you said, if only, fill in the blank? If only I had more money. If only my husband was more like hers. If only I was thinner. If only I was richer. If only my boss appreciated my work. Implied in our if only is that our happiness, joy, or even worth is rooted in that one thing we wish we had. The Korahites' lament, if only we were priests, revealed their discontent with God's plans. It all sounds so foolish, doesn't it? And yet, throughout my life, I have struggled with contentment. And apparently, the Apostle Paul struggled as well, as we read in Philippians 4:11. Not that I am speaking of being in need, for I have learned in whatever situation I am to be content. As we watch the Korahites spiral downward, let's ask God to use their story to reveal any discontentment we harbor in our own hearts. Tomorrow, let's go down a rabbit trail to better understand how the seeds of discontent spread like the seeds of a dandelion and lead to bitter-tasting fruit and chaos. And oh, Father, I pray that as we begin this trek down this little rabbit trail, that you will prepare our hearts to see where we have roots of discontentment that are tangled up in the other parts of our lives, causing bitter-tasting fruit and chaos. Friends, thanks so much for joining us for the Daily Treasure podcast. And before we go our separate ways, I want to share with you one more treasure from Scripture, because that is the basis for everything that we share with you. And it is from Psalm 27, verse 1. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? And I have a feeling that someone listening right now needs to hear that scripture. And so I'm praying for you today as you walk by faith that you will cling to the promise of His presence. I also want to encourage all of you to check out our Help and Hope app, where you can download it for free, the Help and Hope app. And we love to say that then you have hope in the palm of your hand. Make sure that you allow for notifications so you don't miss one free resource. Thanks again for joining us, and I look forward to being with you tomorrow.